Hi. Um, I see a lot of posts and, in A Course in Miracles about there is no world. Okay. But here I am, and here you are in a world. So, personally, I have a real hard time with that one, to say that there's no world, but yet here we are in a world. So I just want to speak to that about a new vision of the world that I'm beginning to experience, right? That's not separate and is, from my point of view, much easier than just denying completely my experience that a world exists, because that's fantasy as far as I'm concerned. I don't care what the Course in Miracles says as far as that goes. I'm sorry. Okay? But my vision of the world increasingly is that it's one organism. Nothing, if you look at the world and see how things are symbiotic, which means everything depends on everything else. So, for instance, if I breathe, well, I wouldn't be able to do that if there were no trees, because what I take in as oxygen, I exhale as carbon dioxide. The trees take in carbon dioxide and exhale oxygen. And the trees give, life to the birds, or, a home for the birds, everything. If you just look at how this world really works and how nature is all interconnected, and one thing is dependent on everything else. And okay, so I'm a truck driver. I'm sitting in my truck. Okay, I'll give you a little bit of tour of my nasty, dirty truck. But yeah, it's, try to block out some light, but okay, so when I go down the road, and I'm trying to get some light back on here. Okay, so when I go down the road, there's one thing that I cannot help but notice, and how traffic flows, okay, is pretty much sorry, it's pretty much the same way that water flows, okay. The universe abhors a vacuum. So if you sit and watch traffic when you're driving, you'll notice if there's an open spot anywhere, somebody's going to take that open spot. It's almost like they're compelled to do it. And I do it too, right? It's just what we do. So, to deny my experience of the body, no, I'm not the body, and I'm not the mind, but I can observe that. But for what I'm seeing is not to deny your experience, right? Not to deny the world, and not to deny anything, but to see it correctly as not separate. It's a whole different game. So when I see people, well, there is no world. Well, what's all this? I'm denying my experience. Does it go away? Sure. When I go to sleep, it's gone. But it it comes back up. So it blinks. That's what I see. Everything blinks. And I don't know if you want to go against science or not, but energy, they find blinks, and there's really no substance. So if you want to go down to that level, that there is no world, then yeah, that makes sense. And maybe that's what A Course in Miracles is maybe pointing to. But since that's my experience, and I'm here in the dream, you want to, go that route with, okay, right? Then I have to work with what's happening and not deny my experience. That's all I'm saying. But just look at how nature is so interconnected, how one thing depends on another. If you've ever had like a saltwater tank and you see the clownfish and an anemone, I think it's called an anemone or something. I don't know. It's a little, like a little tubular kind of plant, living organism kind of thing, right? Nothing else can live in that, but they depend on each other, because one will clean the clownfish, but the clownfish does something. I forgot. Right? So I won't use that analogy because I can't really complete it accurately. But I mean, I can't breathe without the trees. That's a great place to start. All right? I can't walk without the ground. Just notice how one thing depends on everything else. And I'm questioning the whole idea of choice. Now, I can choose where I put my attention, for sure, right? And I put it as much as possible on awareness and try to let thoughts just pass through, right? But everything passes through us. Yeah, right? I eat animals, plants, whatever I eat, right? And I'm not going to get into what's a right diet and all that, because that's it changes with fashion. But everything passes through. My thoughts pass through. They come and they go, right? Whatever I eat passes through the body, right? It becomes part of the body, but some of it gets passed through and feeds the ground, which makes plants grow, and other animals eat it, and we eat it too. So it's all just circulating, okay? I don't know if anybody knows what a toroid is. It's a toroidal field. If you look at an apple and you cut it in half, you get this shape kind of like this, right? So, okay, getting into like the chakra system, which I've looked into, there's a center here, right? The energy flows through. And if you want to put it in terms of A Course in Miracles, the blocks, the love, awareness, that energy has to pass through without any blockages, which we create through the mind. So when it can pass unencumbered, there's freedom, right? That energy is free to move cleanly without any blockage from an egoic thought. We'll say it that way. So just look at the world, but look at it differently, as not separate. Is there a personal self here? In my experience, there seems to be. Okay. I'm going to be honest. There seems to be. But if I close my eyes and try to put my attention on where that is, I find it's a thought. So while that sensation of being a personal self, and then looking at the world and seeing how everything is connected and interdependent on everything else, I'm questioning if I have a choice in what happens to me. I don't know how else to put it, right? Is it happening to me, or is it just happening? Well, if I believe it's happening to me, that's a sure sign that there's a very strong belief that I'm separate from the world because it's happening to me. Not I'm happening with everything else. I'm not flowing with what's happening. There's the block, right, to love's awareness that it's happening to me and I'm a victim of the world. And it's not really true, because if one person tells you to do something, is because everything is so connected, right? I drive a truck. If nobody drove a truck, for instance, right? I'll just use my experience. If nobody drove a truck, you wouldn't eat. Unless you grew a garden. But you would still need tools, seeds, maybe, right? Things wouldn't move, and they didn't as well as they do today, a couple hundred years ago, right? Okay, so that's past, which isn't here, right? I'm making some concessions, right? Because we experience time. So let's just get real with that, what we're experiencing. Is there a past? No. There's only the present. I get it, right? But I still have a memory of being a little kid, and so do you. That's your experience. That's, relatively true. So I'm pretty adamant. I'm not trying to change your experience. I'm just talking about mine. But maybe, yeah, I don't know. I'm just talking to see, if this fits for you, great. If it doesn't, I don't care, right? I do. My heart cares how you see the world. But I have to be honest, I don't know, right? Because when I look at how attention works, right? It's like a beam, and it scans, right? Just like your eyes do, right? I can't really split my attention. I can broaden it, right? Or I can narrow it, right? I can pay attention to a lot of things, or I can focus it down to just, one object. But I think the whole idea that A Course in Miracles is really pointing to, in my understanding, is if you were to take attention and close your eyes and kind of like focus it like a laser beam out into space, that light would go forever. Yeah? Unless it hits an object. But if you turn that attention back on itself, or try to follow that beam back to what this thing, back to what this calls a personal self, you don't find it. There seems to be just that attention goes out from a question mark, right? There's no object there. So I don't know. I've got some answers. I've got some answers for myself. I don't really have answers for anybody else. If you're willing to listen and what I say is helpful, hey, great, man, that's awesome. And we can get together and we can talk about it. And I love to have that discussion, because what I find is when I have this discussion with anybody, I'll hear myself and be oh, right? I'll have a little aha moment, and my whole world changes just from that little moment. And I might have to have that aha moment maybe more than once, like, oh yeah, I remember again, right? It's kind of like, you know, you wake up in the morning and it's Saturday and you don't normally work on Saturday. It's like you run in the bathroom to brush your teeth, try to get a shower, and about halfway through your shower you go like, oh, it's Saturday, it's my day off, I don't have to go to work. Right? It's just the same thing. So that's pretty much all I have to say. But just, you know, is there a world? Is there not a world? Well, it depends on how realistic you want to be. And I like to be practical, and not deny anything, because then I'm not at odds with what my experience is. And that brings peace. Because if you're fighting or trying to make something real that isn't, right? Because it's real. Sorry, it's real. This is on a relative basis. My body is real. I experience it. I taste it. I touch it. Right? There's a relative realness to it. Now, if you take it under a a super duper powerful microscope, it's all just little pixels and dots. So I get the analogy. I totally get it. But because this is my experience and how I see and how the body functions and how perception functions, I'm willing to make the concession, okay? A concession that the world does exist, because this is the dream, this is the experience that I'm having right now. When I go to sleep, that's a whole different thing. But awareness doesn't go to sleep. Right? The world shuts down. It doesn't exist to this. Just like a TV screen. You know, once in a while you turn the TV off because you get tired of watching the screen. You get tired, you go to sleep, it all goes away. Blink, gone. Then the mind comes online, right? You start having dreams, and you're creating it. It's your doing. Karma means it's your doing. So everybody kind of experiences the world just a little bit differently. And in my opinion, it's as it should be. That we all experience a unique point of view. Because what looks through my eyes is still what's looking through yours, right? So the way I see it, and the way A Course in Miracles doesn't teach this, but a lot of other non-dual teachings do teach, and I kind of got more with that because it just seemed not to deny anything. So the way I see the world is that it both exists and doesn't exist. And both are true, because, man, I can't explain that in a way that makes any sense. Right? But yeah, actually I can. If you take a magnetic pole, right, a straight magnetic rod, and try to just cut off the negative side, you'll end up with two positive and negatives. It'll recreate, you've split it, and it'll duplicate itself, right? So you'll have, instead of one magnet, you can't cut off the negative side, it'll just create a new one, and now you have two magnets, because they depend on each other for that flow of energy to keep going, right? So you cannot separate good from evil, black from white, darkness and light. They're not two. They're not separate. day is not separate from night. It's a transition. So that's how I see the world, and increasingly so. And it's gas. So peace out, man. I don't want to make this too long, but anybody who wants to contact me, and I don't know, maybe try to convince me otherwise, which, yeah, please don't, because that'd probably lead to an argument. I'm just not willing to go there at all. So I'm not trying to argue with you. I'm just talking about my experience. And if you're willing to talk about your experience that's a little bit different, hey, man, that's how we learn. But how do you see the world? How do I see the world? And why do we see it different? Right? How is that? Let me look again. Yeah? So, that's it. Peace, man. Love you guys. Talk to you later.